to make them easier for us to sit on. And I've asked Daryl Thickett to demonstrate some of these, and he's riding the 8-year-old Dutch bred gelding by Garibaldi, and it's called Rex. So the first exercise we're going to start with is the half halt. Now the half halt is probably the most critical exercise we use in dressage, and in simple terms all the half halt is a rebalancing exercise. It also brings the horse's concentration back on us so we can use it to prepare for the next movement. How do we teach it? Well, like everything, we have to do it in a progressive way. And Daryl, let's start off with the way we start training half halts into the horse, and that's with some simple trot to walk, walk to trot transitions. Now, the half halt only works if it actually encourages the horse's hind legs to come a little bit further underneath the horse's body. So that means that these transitions that we're going to be using with Daryl now have got to ensure that in the downward transition, the horse's back stays supple to allow his hind legs to keep trotting underneath, and that he's responsive to make the upward transition. So it's a combination of suppleness and response from the horse. If we work backwards then, what do we as riders want to try to bring into that? Well, we've got to stay supple and controlled ourselves, and we've got to make sure that in the upward transition we give very precise leg aids like we saw earlier. Now just work on those, Daryl, on both reins, and eventually cut out the number of walk steps. Oh, reduce them down at least. Just a quick word here about taking the sitting trot before the walk. Generally, when we're training young horses, we don't automatically do the sitting trot before we walk, because if they're not used to taking the rider's weight and swinging in their backs, to suddenly introduce a new variety of an exercise just before an important transition isn't very logical. We tend to introduce the sitting trot well away and before the actual downward transition. Obviously, as the horses get more experienced, and like Rex here, then we can start to introduce the sitting trot a little bit earlier. And as Daryl does this, he'll still be assessing when he sits, is the horse relaxed and loose in his back muscles, or is he tight? Equally, remember what I said earlier, through his contact of his legs, he'll be feeling the horse's muscles across the horse's ribs and feeling, are they loose and allowing the leg to move into the horse, or are the muscles tight and hard? Okay, so now let's see if we can just get these transitions down to one step of walk. Now there are 4 steps of walk that make one stride. So one step is actually very quick. So even less number of walk steps than that, please, Daryl. And trot again. Even a little bit earlier. Now, in order to achieve less walk steps, Daryl will have to be thinking about his leg aid about now, almost before the horse has actually walked, because there's an overlap. And that is, as riders, you have to use every transition to assess the timing, even quicker than that. So just one step. And now trot. Getting better. Of course, if you use your leg too hard, the horse nearly canters. Let's try again. And trot now. That's better. And the idea is that if we just look at the hind legs of the horse, they keep trotting underneath the horse. And trot now. That's it. Coming better. We have to rehearse and practice these transitions so they happen almost seamlessly with no tightness in the muscles, and now the horse is tuning in, until the horse automatically does it on his own. If we do a half halt, very good, very good. If we do a half halt that brings any tightness into a horse's back muscles or takes his hind legs away, then the half halt doesn't work. So these exercises are only as good as actually how they happen. Very good. Okay. And now do it without actually coming into the walk. So you sit up and now you trot forward. Good. It's really hard to see what aids Daryl is actually using. It's almost invisible, which is of course the way we want it. But it isn't invisible. He is actually giving some signals. Daryl, can you tell us exactly how what you're doing to make these downward and upward transitions. Just talk us through that. So when you want to go, what you were saying is, when you want to go into walk, you sit up, yep. And then when you want to go into trot, just take your upper body a little forward. So actually then, Darryl is using signals mostly just from his upper body. They're very discreet, we can hardly see them. He's not actually riding with his legs and with his hands because he's got his horse so finely tuned, he doesn't really need to use those. And when we start making half halts and transitions by using our upper body and having our horse so finely trained, that is what is known as riding between the leg and hand. Instead of with the legs and with the hands, we ride between. And between the legs and the hands is, of course, the pelvis, the hips, and the upper body. Good, Darryl. And then forward. Thank you very much. Rising trot and let him have a stretch. Another exercise which you can train your horse to respond just to your upper body is small circles and corners. If you look at Darryl now, he's riding a series of 10-metre circles. Let's look at how he starts this next one. Watch his shoulders and his chest, he turns, and then a step later the horse follows him by turning. Check his seat now and you see that it's not sliding out. Now Darryl shows how not to do it, and watch his right arm now. His right arm is actually pulling backwards and sideways, actually rather like an open rein, but look what's happened to the horse. The horse has fallen through the shoulder. Now let's see how to do it again correctly, and the less you have to actually use your arms or use your legs, then the less we disturb the horse. And a final one correctly. And now let's completely concentrate. He turns his upper body. It's very hard to see that, but the horse can feel it. And it's very hard to turn your upper body without your seat sliding out. That takes a lot of practice. Thank you very much. Moving on from the circles, we can start to think about our corners and our turns. Because whether we like it or not, every time we go round the arena, we do at least 4 corners. Now, corners can either help the horse's way of going, or they can very easily disturb a horse's way of going, lose balance, cause stiffness, and lose impulsion. So let's see if we can actually help them work. And the first thing to do is to be aware of the size of the corner that you're doing. Now, a corner is just simply a quarter of a small circle. We've just been riding some 10-metre circles, and even young horses can manage a 10-metre circle if we train them correctly. So let's measure out exactly what a quarter of a 10-metre circle looks like. And I'm going to use some props here to help us. If I step out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 5 metres. Obviously the marker here, corner marker, is 6 metres. So then step the same out again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually that comes on what we call the quarter line, which is an invisible line, but it's halfway between the track and the centre line. So now what we've got to do is to join those corners up by riding actually a quarter of a 10-metre circle. So I'm going to ask Darryl to pick up your trot. When you feel ready, come and ride through that corner, leaving the track at the one white marker and getting to the track at the other white marker, and then going large. Now that's a big corner, and that's suitable for a young horse, or if the going isn't very secure, that's a big, easy corner. You can see it still doesn't start at the H marker, it's still after that. So you can ride in a big working trot through that. Very good. And then, of course, if you were going to come down the centre line, having finished the corner here, you just repeat another quarter of a 10-metre circle, which helps a very easy turn. Just once again, we can see that. Big paces, Good. All right, and walk, thank you, Darryl. Now let's go to the other end of the scale. Let's ride the tightest corner that we do even when we're on Grand Prix horses. And that is a quarter of a 6-metre circle. One, two, three. So this corner is completely different to the young horse type of corner. This is a much steeper and tighter corner. This is going to need collection, where the horse steps underneath and carries himself in order to come around the corner upright but correctly bent. So this time, Darryl, just before the corner, this tight corner, I want you to use your half halt so you really have the horse's hind legs underneath. So this is not a corner for big open paces. Now we need to bring him underneath. And good, let's just do it once again, because Darryl, I felt, could have just finished a little bit more exactly at this point here. Now this is a demanding exercise, and this is training collection into the horse. He's only an 8-year-old, so this is very difficult for him. Collect. Good. And just once more, because I could just do with having you a little bit more arriving here with your leg here. Whenever we ride on accuracy exercises, perhaps it's a transition at a marker, it's always taken by where the rider's knee is. So deep corner, collect. Very nice, very good. And that is difficult enough. Thank you, Darryl, into walk. So anywhere between these sizes of corners, you can choose. You choose according to tactics. How collected is your horse able to be, or how collected is he actually? What's the going like? What's the movement like afterwards? But first of all, you have to be aware of what a big corner's like and what a tight corner's like. And you have to practice it. When it comes to turns, they're exactly the same thing, like corners, but they're done off the long side, and we don't have the second wall to guide us. So they require more practice and more accuracy. Simple exercise then to help your corners and your turns. So having got the corners working, let's actually try a turn. And the first turn we're going to do is the most obvious turn, and that's onto the centre line. After all, we have to do this turn almost at the beginning, at the end of every test. Now this particular turn, I've measured out here now, I've chosen to make 4 metres. I felt the 3 metres was just difficult enough for this horse, and this is just a bit easier. So it shouldn't really take away too much in the way of going, and I'm hoping it's going to give the horse a nice bit of engagement and collection. So Darryl, when you're ready then, I want you to ride this size turn and continue up the centre line to X, and then turn right and do it again. Now I've only put these markers here just really as a reference point. You don't have to set these out. It's just to give an idea of the size of turn and where you start your turn and where you finish it. So we need a bit of collection here, and then to ride up. And this marker I've set out to the side of the centre line. Just once again, Darryl, and we can make that a little bit tighter. You turned a little bit before that marker and arrived a little bit later than this marker. Remember, we're arriving straight well before this HM line. And straight. Very good. Now I want you to do it once again, and I want us to focus on Darryl's outside leg. That's the left leg. Because Darryl was very good there, but it's so easy in corners and turns and circles to push this outside leg forward. It's got to stay back because now we haven't got a wall. Can you just do it, show us, Darryl, the turn with the outside leg falling forward? And we will probably see the effect is the horse's quarters will fall out or his shoulders will drift out. So let your outside leg stick forward. Okay, well, from my point of view, I could see immediately the horse's quarters went to the left. And now final time with the outside leg in place. And I really can't stress enough that if you can keep training on corners, turns and circles, being aware of your outside leg, staying a little bit back and close to the horse, then you will arrive with the horse's hind legs underneath and tracking straight. Thank you very much, Darryl. So there we are then. Dressage riding is not simply about riding with our legs and our arms. It's much more than that. It's riding with our whole body. It's being aware of what our body can achieve, coupling it with a sensitive and progressive training program. Pulling, squeezing and kicking is no fun at all. It's no fun for you, and it certainly isn't any fun for your horse. I hope that the ideas and the tips and the exercises that I've been able to show you on this program will help you enjoy your dressage.